Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. We've got a bang-up show for you today, a lot that I want to get to. Some stories in the news that weren't covered as much this week that I want to make sure that we cover, because what I want to focus on today are the other reasons that we shouldn't vote for Joe Biden this November. All right, and one of those has to do with the COVID lockdowns. Now, guys, listen, I don't believe that Trump is completely innocent of this. Obviously, he locked the country down after being duped by Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Deborah Birx. I do believe that he had the right intentions. I do believe that he tried to do the right thing with Operation Warp Speed, but I think that he was given a bunch of wrong information. And now we know that many of the scientists that are inside the NIAID, that are inside of the NIH and the CDC, the Dr. Francis Collins, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. David Morans, Peter Daszak of Eco Health Alliance just sold us a bill of goods. We've learned that the left, not the left, I'm sorry, but these guys that are in these institutions completely lied to us about the effectiveness of social distancing, of masking. They've made this stuff up essentially. And now a bombshell dropped this week in regards to the COVID lockdowns because, again, well, not again, but what Trump did was he tried to protect the country, even though 2020 hindsight, we can look at that and say that was the wrong move. That gave Democrats the opportunity, I believe, to rig the 2020 election in their favor. But and then when Joe Biden got in office, the economy was starting to recover under Trump. I feel as though the pandemic was starting to go bye-bye. It was starting to wane. But the left, the Democratic Party, saw the opportunity of the pandemic. They saw it as an opportunity to gain more power, to gain more control for themselves. And they were aided by scientists like this who were continuing to lie. And you can't tell me that Biden's administration did not know internally that these guys were lying. The information that you're getting ready to hear, the video that you're getting ready to watch, and we have a couple of them. I'm going to ask you to bear with me because this information is so important. But you had 1.1 million Americans that died as a result of the as a result of COVID. You're having even more people, I believe, potentially that may endure serious injury, even death, as a result of the vaccines that were mandated, not to mention the livelihoods, the incomes that were uprooted, the businesses and jobs that were lost as a result of the COVID lockdowns that the Biden administration in a totalitarian-like fashion imposed on so many of us. And now the truth is starting to come out. We know that these people lied when they said COVID was naturally occurring. We know, and we'll go into details of that later. We know that the virus, they lied when they said the virus didn't come from the Wuhan lab. We know that's a lie now. They lied when they said that the U.S. didn't participate in gain of function research. That is a complete and utter lie. And we'll go through that with more specificity as the time goes on. But I want to turn your attention to this video of Representative Malliotakis interviewing or questioning Dr. David Morans, who literally tried to disappear emails that could have been troubling as it relates to COVID, as it relates to his communications with Peter Daszak and perhaps Anthony Fauci, Dr. Francis Collins. And the only reason we got a hold of these emails were due to FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests that are normally some other type of activist or law firm will put in for these requests, or, in order to get more information, federal documents. So now all of this stuff is being exposed. These people completely lied to us, and the truth has to be told because this can never happen again. This should never, ever, ever happen again. The lockdowns, the government should never have the power through these bureaucratic agencies to uproot your lives, to destroy your lives. You didn't vote for these unelected bureaucrats. This can never happen again. And so these people need to be exposed. I wish they would all go to jail because I do believe that they all deserve jail, and frankly, worse. But I would actually settle for, you know what? We were completely wrong and this should never happen again. But we can't even get that. Here's the video. Dr. David Morans. Gabe, let's go ahead and roll it. Gabe will keep me abreast of the time. This is a longer video. I'm going to ask you to be patient, but what you're getting ready to watch, I think is spectacular, and every American should see it. Go ahead and roll the tape, por favor, Gabe.
Now recognize Ms. Malliotakis from New York for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. Dr. Morans, you used your personal email to conduct official NIAID business, and you shared non-public information with EcoHealth, an organization that was vying for federal dollars from your agency. Given your position and experience, you knew that this was against FOIA regulations. You even indicated it in many of the emails in your personal Gmail. Can you explain why you chose to bypass official channels? And how do you justify that?
Well, let me go back to the very beginning. In early 2020, Peter Daszak, who's been a personal friend of mine for almost 20 years, I've had government interactions with him that would be on my NIH email, but almost all my interactions with him for years have been personal, as a friend. And suddenly he was getting death threats, credible death threats, and his wife and his 2 daughters were getting credible death threats. And the FBI was investigating, and they were publishing these death threat people, which are said to be QAnon. I don't even know who they are, but you know, they were marching outside his house, and they were sending threatening things. An anthrax powder envelope was mailed to him, and it just freaked everybody out.
Why did you choose to use personal email?
Because that was not government business. What happens to a private citizen in a death threat situation, in my mind, is not government business.
Well, it is government business if you are advising him, you're advocating on his behalf, you're editing things, letters that he wanted to send to NIH. You did all that on personal email, correct?
I don't remember, but if I did, I shouldn't have done that. That's wrong.
It is wrong, and that's why we're asking the question, because you were using it for official business, and that's what we're trying to understand why. Why were you trying to hide this from members of Congress, from the government, from the public? Should it have been a freedom of information law? It does seem that you have a very cozy relationship with Peter Daszak. You indicated that he was a good friend. I have to, after reading this email from Exhibit 6, on August 27, 2020, after NIH was awarded a $7.5 million grant to EcoHealth Alliance, you wrote to him and you asked, do I get a kickback? Too much fooking, F-O-O-K-I-N-G, money. Do you deserve it all? Question mark. Let's discuss. Would you like to explain?
That's typical black humor between people like Peter and me and other folks who show up in these emails.
And he responded saying, thanks for the kind words, and of course there's a kickback, period. You think that's appropriate behavior between NIH, somebody who works for NIAID, to a grantee who just received $7.5 million from the government? My question, before I run out of time, is have you ever received any compensation from Peter Daszak or EcoHealth?
No.
Have you ever received any compensation from any entity outside of your employer and NIAID?
It depends. I don't know what the definition of compensation is.
Well, have you ever received any money?
I get a pension.
Okay, you have a pension, not government related. I'm asking specifically, because you have to ask that question when you put it in writing, asking him for a kickback.
Well, you know, there's 2 parts to your question. Let me answer. All of this stuff was a bunch of snarky jokes. And I think, you know, we all knew that.
Well, I don't think any of us think it's a funny joke.
Well,
I mean, you are representing the United States government, you're representing an agency, and you're asking a grantee if do I get a kickback?
I believe.
Do you deserve it all? Let's discuss, ... So I'm going to ask one more time, remind you you're under oath, did you ever receive any money from Peter Daszak, EcoHealth, or anybody else outside of your employer, NIAID, or the federal government directly?
No, ma'am, with the exception of early after I joined NIH, I had a private corporation, and you know, in which I used to do consulting. And shortly after I got to NIH, I realized there would always be a conflict
Okay.
And that corporation has been silent for 20 years now. No income. And may I say one more thing?
Yes.
And before he says that, let's pause real quick here. Again, I just want to remind you that you are listening to Dr. David Marens. He is right under, or he was under Dr. Anthony Fauci, a senior advisor to him from 1998 till 2022. We only have about 30 seconds left in this break. I tell you what we'll do is just continue after the break with this video. And I have some more video that I want to play for you, because literally you have this gentleman, Dr. David Marens, senior advisor for Dr. Anthony Fauci, admitting that some of his emails did sound, quote unquote, incriminating. So I want to get to those emails. I want to get to some of those quotes. Again, 1.1 million Americans died and their lives were destroyed as a result of a lot of the regulations that were set by these leaders. We should know what they were up to. Carl Jackson will be back. Hello and welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Before we went to the break, we were listening to testimony from Dr. David Marens. Again, this guy was the top NIAID scientific advisor under Dr. Anthony Fauci for quite some time, for 24 years, and he admitted to disappearing, if you will, emails to his colleagues. And it's so funny to me, because he was arguing with Representative Maliotakis, and we'll continue here in just a sec, that a lot of his emails were, personal, and so he felt like they didn't need to be on government emails. But this absolutely makes no sense to me. I mean, the guy goes back and forth. All he seems to talk about is business stuff. And if it's all personal, I don't understand why there's a need to disappear your emails if you're having personal conversations, unless those personal conversations in the emails contain work-related conversations that you think could be damning or incriminating. And that is how he felt. We'll get to that in another video. We'll wrap up this interview that he had, or this line of questioning with Representative Maliotakis. And honestly, she did a good job. A lot of these congressmen they just ask too many questions. They try to get, the clickbait. But she did a good job of exposing him. I think the next interview that you'll watch will do the same. Again, what we found out is that COVID, the NIAID under Dr. Anthony Fauci, the NIH under Dr. Francis Collins lied when they said that COVID was naturally occurring. They lied when they said the virus didn't come from the Wuhan lab. They lied when they said that the U.S. government did not fund gain-of-function research. They caused the outbreak in the Wuhan lab. All of that was a lie. They lied about the effects of social distancing, totally made it up from thin air. They lied about masking, destroyed millions of lives in the United States, not to mention globally. Good Lord. And these men are finally, I think, being held to account as news continues to surface, more with Dr. David Marens being grilled by Representative Maliotakis on the Hill. Let's roll it, Gabe.
15 seconds.
I've already apologized for making snarky and profane comments, but I made them thinking that they were made on my private email in a manner that was just between a small group of friends and would never end up where it's ended up. It's embarrassing to me. I shouldn't have done it, but I accept that I did. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry.
Okay, so he said he's sorry. Does that cut it? COVID-19 killed 1.1 million Americans, again, destroyed the lives and livelihoods of millions more. A man-made virus, hat tip to the New York Post for this column, a man-made virus that escaped from this Chinese lab that we helped to fund. I mean, this is absolutely insane. The New York Post write, no fact checkers will rush in to claim that the eminent scientists deny this, which is because those scientists have too much invested in their money and their time, in their own beliefs to admit the truth. Listen, I would settle for I know these guys deserve jail time. I would be shocked. And maybe they've done they've done a doozy on me. I would be happy if these guys publicly, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Dr. Francis Collins, Dr. David Moranz, would not have to be coerced into apologizing to the American people and say, guys, listen, we didn't know what we were dealing with. We screwed this thing up big time. This should never happen again. We didn't want it to happen in the first place. But no, that's not what's happening. They tried to cover their butts. I want you to listen to this interview with this, and her name escapes me, but her name will pop up and we'll show it. I want you to listen to this line of questioning where Dr. David Moranz eventually admits that, yeah, some of the emails that I sent to Peter Daszak, they do sound relatively incriminating. You don't think? Let's go ahead and roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo my colleague's sentiment that your behavior, your mishandling of federal records and disregard for transparency obligations under the Freedom of Information Act are an affront to the taxpayers whose contributions fund this federal government and to whom we are all accountable, including yourself. In addition, they cast a shadow on the legacy of the millions of federal workers who serve the public diligently and respectfully day in and day out. I want to be very clear on this point. Your troubling misconduct, Dr. Moranz, is an anomaly, not the norm. And it is essential that you be held accountable for your misconduct so that the American people can remain confident that their taxpayer dollars are being invested in a federal workforce that is committed to serving our nation responsibly and with the care that it deserves. So let me ask you, Dr. Moranz, do you feel any remorse for the way in which you handled the federal records that have been reflected on the members of federal workforce who you have served alongside?
I'm sorry I'm getting a little echo here, and I'm not sure I'm hearing every word you say. And I'm also.
Do you feel any remorse for their handling of federal records and how it has reflected on our federal workforce that serves alongside of you, the injustice you have done by making them look bad by your actions?
To the extent that I've.
Do you feel sorry, yes or no? It's a simple question.
Of course, I've said that already.
You feel sorry, you apologize?
Yes, I do.
To the workforce, the federal workforce in which you have now cast a shadow over?
Yes.
So can you say that you will, in fact, apologize for betraying your shared obligation of serving the American taxpayers with the utmost respect for transparency and accountability, that you let Americans down? Will you apologize for that?
Ma'am, I would not use the word betray. I've let them down. Most of it was inadvertent, making poor choices and not understanding all these rules and regulations. But, betrayal suggests a conscious act, and I never did that. I have great respect for the federal workforce. I've been in federal government employment for 48 consecutive years with lots of awards and accolades, and I've never had a hint of scandal. So to have.
So are you saying you're proud of your behavior?
Let's pause for just a sec. That's part of the problem. This guy has been in the federal government workforce for 48 years. He admits that he had a business. He had a consulting business. Why not go back to that consulting business? Why not stick with that consulting business? I'm sorry, the federal government, a lot of people talk about term limits when it comes to politicians. I disagree with that. I don't think that changes anything. I'm sorry, but I believe that so many Americans are so morally bankrupt. I don't think that term limits solves absolutely anything. We have a constitution. We have a system where people are supposed to be involved. So even if you have term limits, if you're not involved and if you're not electing virtuous people, as the founder suggested, term limits aren't going to matter a difference. All that's going to happen is those people are going to get in, morally bankrupt people, and they're just going to do as much corruption as they can, or as quickly as they can. I don't think that makes a difference whatsoever. I think what does make a difference is these people need to be congressmen and women need to be in their districts, and I don't believe that these bureaucracies need to. Many of these bureaucracies don't need to exist, and certainly if they do exist, I don't think that these people should be able to work for them a long time and get these pensions that are absolutely outrageous. That literally the average salary, American working salaries, government salaries are just so huge compared to the average American worker. This shouldn't be the case. These people should be paid no more and get no more benefits or special treatment than anyone in the private sector would get. That's a huge, huge problem. In many of these congressmen and many other staffers, that's another issue. Staffers need to go bye-bye. Maybe staffers should have term limits. Anyway, All right, let's go ahead and roll this.
Some of the behavior in
all
which
of it.
was
I'm not proud
reflected
of-
here today in terms of comments you make, whether it be on official or non-official emails, are you proud of this behavior? Is it up to the standards of the federal government and what taxpayers deserve?
No, I'm not.
So shouldn't this be a bit of a betrayal to the public, the ones you took an oath to make sure that you upheld your actions, your decisions, your comments? I consider it a betrayal, and we'll agree to disagree on this. I'm also disappointed, Dr. Moritz, that someone in your position has taken such a brazen approach to blurring the lines between your official duties and your personal communications, as has been discussed by this panel. For example, in your personal email correspondence, including in your email signatures. So this is not just something unintentional. You identify yourself with your role at NIAID. And you frequently reference transferring correspondence from your official email address to your personal address, including when discussing matters where NIAID is actively engaged. In doing so, you're blurring the lines between whether you are taking actions in your official capacity with the federal agency or in your individual capacity pursuant to your personal interests. Dr. Moritz, did you ever conduct government business through your personal email account?
Not intentionally, and
But unintentionally or not, did you conduct government business through your personal email account?
well, some of the emails I've seen that you all have provided look pretty incriminating. I don't know what they are, I don't remember them, but yes, it looks like I made a mistake on more than one occasion, but it certainly wasn't my intention to do that. And let me also,
Mistake or not, though, I'm running short of time. You are admitting that you did official government business through your personal email.
Let's cut it there. Listen, a mistake or not, and I don't believe that it was, the reason why he says those emails look incriminating, because they are incriminating. They are incriminating. Millions of lives ruined because of these gentlemen. This is the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back with more when we get back. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Guys, Senator Ted Cruz was grilling one of Joe Biden's latest federal judicial nominees on the bench. This is a woman that Joe Biden wants to put on the federal bench that literally allowed a man pretending to be a woman, a 6'2" man, which you'll hear shortly here, who literally still has his male genitalia intact. This judge allowed him to serve time in a women's prison after he claimed that he was a woman. Now, this was after he had raped a 9-year-old boy, a 17-year-old woman, and he was caught with kiddie porn. But this judge saw fit to allow this man who hadn't undergone any type of physical surgery to serve time in a women's prison. This is Senator Ted Cruz grilling this judge on this. And guys, this is another reason not to vote for Biden in 2024. All right, we've seen what he's done with the lockdowns and how that guy and his administration just act like pure dictators, and Democrats across the country followed suit to tell you how you could live your lives with a bunch of unelected bureaucrats telling you what to do. Another issue that we need to confront head on is real science. Men cannot be women and women cannot be men. I don't care if they have surgery. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't some people that genuinely struggle with gender dysphoria. I do believe those people exist, but I also believe there are a lot of people that are desperate for attention. There's also people that are taking advantage of a culture that is now completely, it's sad to say, morally bankrupt in the United States of America. So now you can get men that deserve to be in prison or even get a death sentence, it literally can go serve time with women after having raped a woman. This is insane. And this is what's happening with all this gender identity politics. That needs to stop. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. That is science. That is biology. That is biology 101. You can't be a different gender. You can't be, that gender is fluid. You have two sexes. It's XX or XY. It's pretty simple. Senator Ted Cruz gets it. And honestly, I believe when these people are questioned, maybe a light clicks on. a light clicks on. There was a report earlier this week. A recent new study found, I forget where the report comes from, but this is on Dan Bongino's website, the Bongino Report. A recent new study found that transgender adults who had undergone so-called gender-affirming surgery were 12 times more likely to attempt suicide than those who had not undergone the surgery. Now, honestly, a lot of these sites are frankly late to the party. I talked about this on Officer Tatum's show quite some time ago. But it is important that this information gets out. The study used data from 90 million U.S. adult patients between the ages of 18 and 60. All right. According to the Washington Examiner, the results showed that 3.5% of those who had surgically transitioned were treated for suicide attempts, compared to just 0.3% of non-transition patients. All right. This is a big deal. Here's Senator Ted Cruz. I want you to hear him grilling this judge, potentially on the bench, so effectively. We cannot forget the courts when it comes to November. We do not want wacky judges like this on the federal bench. Let's go ahead and roll the tape. Por favor, Gabe.
In your court, what matters more, the rights of individuals or your political ideology?
I apply the law to the facts.
I asked a question, which matters more?
Well, my political ideology doesn't matter at all.
Okay, so I don't believe you. And I think this case demonstrates that you are willing to subjugate the rights of individuals to satisfy your political ideology. This case involves a male defendant who raped a 9-year-old boy. Was he guilty of that?
Yes, the petitioner pled guilty to that.
Okay, so he raped a 9-year-old boy. He also raped a 17-year-old girl. Was he guilty of that?
He pled guilty, the petitioner pled guilty to that crime as well.
So was he guilty?
I hope so, because she pled guilty to it.
He was a he when he did this.
That's correct.
1 year after being released again, he was convicted of having child pornography. Is that correct?
I'm unclear on exactly the time frame that you're at, but the petitioner was convicted of distributing child pornography.
Child pornography that was images of adults violently raping children.
Abhorrent conduct.
Okay.
For which there are real victims.
And this individual, 6'2", biologically a man. A minute ago you said that when this man decided that he was a she, you said this individual was, quote, I wrote it down, sober and entirely a female. That phrase struck me as remarkable. Did this individual have male genitalia?
I think what I said, or at least what
that is a verbatim quote, entirely a female.
Sorry, what I meant to say was hormonally a female.
Okay, but that's not entirely. Did this individual have male genitalia?
Yes.
So you took a 6'2" serial rapist, serial child rapist with male genitalia, and he said, you know, I'd like to be in a women's prison. And your answer was, that sounds great to me. Let me ask you something. The other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Is that a question you're
yes,
asking me?
The other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Of course.
Do they have the right not to have a 6'2" man who is a repeat serial rapist put in as their cellmate?
Senator Cruz, I considered the facts presented to me, and I reached a decision based on what the law
I asked you a
is.
question. Do they have a right not to have a 6'2" man who is a serial rapist put in as their cellmate? Do those women have a right to that?
Every person who's incarcerated has the right to be safe in their space.
But you didn't think so. You didn't think so. And in fact, I'm going to give some quotes from your order, because Senator Kennedy is right. This is not a judge's order. This is a political activist. By the way, the beginning of your order says, at birth, people are typically assigned a gender. I got to say that would astonish a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans think you go to the hospital, a baby is born, and congratulations, you have a little boy, a little girl. The assigned a gender, I know you went to Brown, but it sounds like it's in a college faculty lounge with no bearing on reality. The Bureau of Prison argued what I'm saying right now, that if you put this person in a female prison, there will be a risk of sexual assault to the women. And you know what you did? You said you didn't care about the women. Have you dealt In what universe is someone who is a serial...
Can we stop the tape for just a second, Gabe? Let me know what the time is, please. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. I want you to notice how cold this lady is. This is a lady that has been brainwashed. She's matter of fact. This is a lady that has never, in my opinion, she went to Brown University. Ted Cruz just revealed that. So this is faculty lounge conversation. This is a person that exists in a bubble, that has probably existed in a bubble for quite some time. Brown is a prestigious university, but it is one of the most radical, left-wing radical universities in the entire country. And now this lady is sitting on the bench, so she's willing to send a man pretending to be a woman into a prison cell with a woman. God knows if the woman that's sitting in the prison cell with this dude pretending to be a woman is a victim of rape herself. After this man has raped children, after this man has been caught looking at just abhorrent child pornography where children are being raped, by the way, this lady, this cold and calculated lady, sends him to prison, or sends him to prison with women. Can you believe this? Let's go ahead and finish up this video.
In what universe is someone who is a serial repeat child rapist not at a risk of reoffending?
Senator, as I do in every case.
Okay, I know you've been told to repeat the line, I follow the law. I asked a question. In what universe is someone who is a serial repeat child rapist not at risk of reoffending?
Sir, I looked at the facts that were before me in this case. All of the evidence, including the statements of every warden who had supervised this petitioner.
I have to say, if I were the father of one of those women, and you decided that my daughter's cellmate was going to be a 6'2" man who over and over and over again committed violent sexual assault, I would say the entire justice system is absurd, and it is clear on your record your political ideology matters a heck of a lot more than the rights of those women that you endangered. I think you're a radical, and I think you have no business being a judge.
The lady shouldn't be anywhere near children. I don't trust her. Not just on the bench. That lady shouldn't be anywhere near children. That lady's sick. And you notice this, guys. Hey, listen, yes, you can say I'm stereotyping because I am. Look at her. Look at her. You can look at that lady a mile away and you know which way she votes. You know what she believes. Guys, our justice system is in trouble. Just look at what's happening to Trump this week as we await the jury to come back next week in this non-disclosure agreement trial to issue a verdict. This is insane. Our justice system is out of control. We need to stop these judges and put originalists in. This is the Carl Jackson Show. We'll be back to close it out. You stay tuned. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show, guys. Listen, I am talking about the other reasons not to vote for Joe Biden. And listen, there are plenty of reasons why we shouldn't vote for Joe Biden. I would say the borders are one. The economy is one, obviously. These are the top two concerns. Crime are the main topics that I hope many of you are going to the polls to and hoping to turn things around this November. But I wanted to bring up the other issues. The rule of law is absolutely at stake in the United States of America. We've seen the left, the Democrat Party, weaponize the justice system against former President Donald Trump and make a mockery of our system. We're going to play AOC for you in just a moment. We've seen what they're doing with the border, what the left is doing with the border. And as a result of the Biden's open border, we've had 2 Jordanian nationals. Just this week, it was reported, even though this occurred a couple of weeks ago, that are now in ICE custody over a breach at the Quantico Marine Base. And it was basically an ISIS dry run. One of these gentlemen were on the terrorist watch list. Both of them came via the southern border, Biden's open border. Guys, we're in a bunch of trouble. But I want to circle back, if you will, to Trump's case real quick. This non-disclosure agreement case. Trump visited the South Bronx. He's actually set to visit. This show is taped early today, so Trump will be visiting the South Bronx tonight. I think that is a great idea. I think Republicans should go. where Republicans don't typically go, and maybe just by sheer size of crowd, maybe other people will see the excitement for a Trump presidency as opposed to a Biden presidency. And perhaps those people in the South Bronx that were like, ooh, man, I would never vote for Trump. Maybe they see that excitement and say, well, you know what? If this person feels this way, let me give them a shot. That's why Republicans should go in areas that we don't typically go. I think it was a good move by the Trump campaign to go to the South Bronx. But here's AOC basically letting the cat out of the bag, so to speak, saying the quiet part out loud as to what the left is doing with these political persecutions. I'm not even sure if she's insightful enough to realize what she's saying, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and roll the video. Por favor, Gabe.
And by the way, he's doing it in the South Bronx not to make a point, but because he's got court. And the man practically has the legal version of an ankle bracelet around him, and he can't leave the 5 boroughs because he always has to be in court. And so it is truly an embarrassment to him. And I am looking forward to the response of everyday Bronxites talking about how they feel about him coming to their back.
Okay. All right. So now she's an embarrassment to Congress, but, but that's absolutely that's AOC. But she basically lets the cat out the bag. That's her strategy. The Biden administration, Joe Biden, the guy is completely incoherent. I mean, you had in his NAACP speech, you have his White House, his administration.
The president has the authority to do something about this unilaterally. Congress is in a divided government right now. Why isn't he doing anything?
Why should he have to do it unilaterally? Why should we do it in a legislative way? And let's not forget that negotiated.
I know, but undo some of.
Wait, so you're right. He took many executive actions before, but in order to deal with what's happening at the border, in order to deal with a broken immigration system, you need law.
Okay. All right. So Biden, she admits in that video that Biden unilaterally, I mean, this guy wiped out all of Trump's executive orders when it came to the border, the Remain in Mexico City policy, policies like that kept illegals out of the country, right? And so that they could be vetted before they came to the United States, and so that we didn't have this mass rush on the border. Fentanyl was coming through our borders. Fentanyl was coming in our country, but not at the levels that we see it today. The crime and the havoc that's occurring as a result of Biden's open border policy is absolutely insane. Joe Biden could turn things around in a pin swipe. And he could re-implement all of the executive orders that Trump put in place that he took away on day one, but he chooses not to do it. So what Karine Jean-Pierre is trying to play this game. Well, we want all of the legislators involved. Well, how come they wouldn't get involved when Trump was in office? How come he had to sign executive orders as it relates to the border? It's because Democrats gave him so much grief. All right. So Biden could turn things around, and then we could work on the legislation with the next president. How about we stop the bleeding? They don't want to stop the bleeding because they need the votes. That's what the Democrat Party wants. They want power. Now, this is more. I'm going to go to Merrick Garland. The news came out this week that there was an standard order of procedure or standard operating procedure when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago that they were instructed they could use lethal force. Now, listen, that is standard operating procedure. What isn't standard operating procedure is to raid the house of a former president. And so by raiding the house of a former president, since that isn't standard operating procedure. You would think that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, will say, you know what, guys, this is unprecedented. This has never happened before. So we want to make sure that nothing transpires on that ground that looks crazy or that could go crazy. Secret Service is armed. You guys are armed. Let's give them a shout out. Let's let them know that we're coming. Let's let them know what we're coming for. And just absolutely insane. Now, thank God Trump wasn't there. This stuff could have gotten out of control, but it's amazing to me how many people are online that are saying, Carl, you're an ignoramus. That was standard operating procedure. Yes, it is standard operating procedure for the FBI to be armed. And listen, when they go into a situation, they may have to use lethal force. When people see cops coming or law enforcement coming, people can get crazy. Not a former president. Let's go ahead and roll the tape, por favor, Gabe.
There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter.
The order, according to a court filing, contained a policy statement regarding the use of deadly force, which stated, for example, law enforcement officers of the DOJ may use deadly force when necessary. According to the filing, the DOJ and FBI agents plan to bring standard issue weapons, ammo, handcuffs, and medium and large-sized bolt cutters. But they were also instructed, according to the filing, to wear unmarked polo or collared shirts and to keep law enforcement equipment concealed.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to roll this video if we have enough time here, Gabe. This is Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, you guys may know, nationally syndicated radio host, also a podcaster, but more importantly for this, as it pertains to this story, formerly a Secret Service agent that worked with both Presidents George W. Bush and President Barack Obama. Here's what he had to say about that standard operating procedure when it comes to the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago.
It's not a standard raid. It was an unprecedented raid on a Secret Service protected compound on a former president who was running for president or known to be running for president again. These people in the government work for us. They don't have Avenger-like powers. They have powers we grant to them through the Constitution and the United States Code because we operate on consent of the governed. They are not allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And any lawyer, and I use lawyer in air quotes because these people are like Wikipedia lawyers. They don't know shit about anything. Any lawyer on Twitter, agent or anything else, suggesting to you that, oh, listen, this was just a standard black and white thing, immediately unfollow. They have no idea what they're talking about. Folks, there is nothing about this that was standard. The entire United States government, when it comes to blue on blue, force situations, Congress people, senators, the president of the United States operates in a gray area that's constantly litigated. Anyone telling you it's a standard plan, and this was a standard ops plan to discuss use of force options at freaking Mar-a-Lago with the former president, I'm sorry, is a freaking moron. And you should never listen to anything they say again. I am not kidding. This was not SOP.
All right, that's Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, guys. So listen, borders, economy, and crime. I hope you will go to the ballot box, as well as free speech, I should say, to vote for those issues. Obviously, we're in dire straits when it comes to the economy. Generation Z is feeling it big time. Credit card numbers are up are skyrocketing. But these are the other issues, guys. The trans issue, the COVID lockdowns, and how they tried to destroy your life. The left did. The Democrat Party did. The weaponization of the DOJ. If they can come after a former president, how much more can they do to you? And then Biden has offered this week more student loan forgiveness at the tune of $7.7 billion. So he's going to circumvent Congress, defy the Supreme Court. What about the people that have already gone and paid for college? What about the people that didn't go for college? Guys, there's a whole bunch of reasons that we shouldn't vote for Biden. And I hope I gave you a few more of those reasons. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good.